Daniel Carter thought he was the smartest man in the galaxy. He drove his expensive black car through the docking bay of the huge space station that floated above the moon called New Titan. The station was massive and beautiful with lights everywhere and windows that showed the stars beyond. Next to him sat Lauren Mitchell, who was 28 years old with blonde hair and green eyes. She worked as his assistant at his import company back on Earth, but for the last 8 months she had been much more than that. She was his secret lover, and today they were going to spend a whole weekend together at a hotel that nobody knew about. The hotel was called Celestial Rest, and it was famous across all the human colonies in space. People said it was the most private place you could find anywhere. Rich people came here when they wanted to do things they should not do. Married people brought their secret lovers here. Business people made illegal deals here. Everyone knew that what happened at Celestial Rest stayed at Celestial Rest. That was exactly why Daniel picked it. He told his wife Catherine that he was going to a boring mining conference on Europa, which was one of the moons around Jupiter. She believed him because she always believed him. Or at least that was what Daniel thought. Lauren looked excited and a little bit nervous. She wore a red dress that Daniel bought for her last month. Her hand reached over and touched his arm. She asked him if he was really sure about this whole thing. Daniel smiled at her with confidence. He told her that everything was perfect. His wife would never find out. Nobody would ever know. They were hundreds of thousands of miles away from Earth and even further from anywhere that Catherine might look for him. He felt that familiar rush of excitement that came from doing something forbidden. They walked through the glass corridors of the space station. The station rotated slowly to create artificial gravity, so walking felt almost normal, like being on Earth. Through the windows they could see the beautiful purple and blue clouds of a nebula in the distance. Other travelers passed by them heading to restaurants and shops and other hotels. Nobody paid any attention to Daniel and Lauren. They were just another couple among hundreds of people on this station. The entrance to Celestial Rest was elegant with real marble floors and gold decorations on the walls. A holographic sign welcomed them in 15 different languages. The lobby was quiet and sophisticated with soft music playing and the smell of expensive flowers in the air. Daniel felt pleased with himself. This was exactly the kind of place that showed he had class and money. He wanted to impress Lauren, and he could see from her wide eyes that it was working. They approached the front desk, which had a smooth black surface with holographic displays floating above it. Daniel was about to press the call button when a door behind the desk opened. A woman walked out, and Daniel felt his whole world collapse in that single moment. The woman was tall and elegant, wearing an expensive dark blue business suit. Her black hair was pulled back in a perfect professional style. She had dark eyes and high cheekbones, and she moved with confidence and authority. She looked successful and powerful and beautiful. It was Catherine. His wife, Catherine. Daniel could not breathe. His brain stopped working. His heart felt like it was going to explode in his chest. This could not be happening. This was impossible. Catherine was supposed to be on Earth. Catherine was supposed to be at home, probably reading a book or watching shows on the view screen. Catherine was not supposed to be here on this station running this hotel. Catherine was not supposed to be standing right in front of him while he was with his mistress. Lauren did not notice anything wrong at first. She smiled at the elegant woman behind the desk. She did not know who Catherine was because Daniel never showed Lauren any pictures of his wife. He always kept that part of his life completely separate. Now those two worlds were crashing together in the worst possible way. Catherine looked at Daniel. Her face showed nothing. She looked professional and calm, like she was greeting any other guest. But Daniel could see something in her eyes. Recognition, understanding, and something else that made his blood turn cold. It was not anger exactly. It was more like satisfaction, like she had been expecting this. Catherine spoke in a smooth voice that betrayed nothing. She welcomed them to Celestial Rest. She asked if they were checking in. Her tone was perfectly polite and professional. Daniel tried to speak, but no words came out. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. His legs felt weak. He thought he might actually fall down right there in the lobby. Lauren glanced at Daniel with confusion. Then she smiled at Catherine and said yes, they had a reservation. The name was Carter. As soon as Lauren said the name, Daniel saw the smallest hint of a smile touch Catherine's lips. Catherine's fingers moved gracefully over the holographic display. She said she found the reservation, the honeymoon suite. She emphasized those last two words just slightly. She looked at Daniel again, and this time there was definitely something dangerous in her expression. Daniel finally found his voice. He stammered out Catherine's name. Just her name. Nothing else would come out. Lauren's head turned quickly between Daniel and Catherine. She was starting to understand that something was very wrong here. She asked what was going on. Her voice had changed from excited to worried. Catherine acted like Daniel had not said anything. She asked politely if they knew each other, but her eyes told Daniel that she knew exactly who he was. Of course she knew. She was his wife. They had been married for 8 years. Lauren's confusion was growing. She looked at Daniel, waiting for an explanation, but he could not give her one. Catherine printed out 2 key cards and slid them across the desk. She told them their room was on the top floor. She said they would have spectacular views of the nebula. She hoped they would enjoy their stay. Then she added something that made Daniel's stomach drop even further. She mentioned that the hotel had excellent surveillance systems throughout the entire building. Every hallway, every room, every corner. She said it was all for security purposes, of course. Everything was recorded. Everything was backed up to multiple servers across the solar system. Every moment of every guest's stay was captured and saved forever. The meaning was crystal clear. Daniel felt sweat forming on his forehead despite the cool air conditioning. Catherine smiled at them one more time. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who held all the cards in a game that Daniel did not even know he was playing. She told them to enjoy their stay, and then she turned and walked back through the door behind the desk. The door closed silently behind her, leaving Daniel and Lauren standing in the lobby. Lauren grabbed the key cards from the desk. She was asking questions now. Lots of questions. Who was that woman? How did Daniel know her? What was happening? But Daniel could not answer. He could only stare at the door where his wife had disappeared and wonder how his perfect plan had turned into the worst nightmare of his life. Lauren figured it out fast. She was not stupid. She looked at Daniel's pale face and his shaking hands and the way he could not stop staring at that door. She asked him directly if that woman was his wife. Daniel could not lie anymore. He nodded slowly. Lauren's face went through several emotions in just a few seconds. Confusion turned to shock. Shock turned to anger. Anger turned to something worse, which was disgust. She asked him how this was possible. She asked him if he knew his wife owned this hotel. Daniel shook his head. He had no idea. He never knew Catherine had any business. He thought she stayed home and lived off his money. He thought she was just a housewife waiting for him to come home from his important business trips. Lauren threw the key cards at him. They bounced off his chest and fell to the marble floor. She told him he was unbelievable. She told him he was a liar and a coward. She said a lot of other things too, and her voice got louder with each word. Other guests in the lobby started to look at them. Daniel tried to calm her down, but that only made things worse. Lauren told him to never speak to her again. She said she was done. She was getting on the next shuttle back to Mars, and when she got back to the office, she was going to quit. She never wanted to see his face again. Then she turned and walked quickly toward the exit. Her high heels clicked loudly on the marble floor. Daniel watched her go and did not try to stop her. What could he say that would make any of this better? He stood alone in the lobby for a long time. Other guests walked past him. Staff members glanced at him with professional concern. Finally, he bent down and picked up the key cards. He thought about leaving too. He could catch a shuttle and go anywhere, Mars, Earth, Europa, anywhere but here. But something kept him frozen in place. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the fact that he needed answers. He needed to understand how this happened. How his quiet wife, who he thought he knew everything about, had secretly become the owner of one of the most exclusive hotels in the colonies. Daniel decided to go to the observation lounge instead of his room. The lounge was on the side of the hotel that faced the nebula. The walls were made of thick, transparent aluminum, so it felt like sitting in space itself. The nebula filled the view with swirls of purple and blue and pink. It was beautiful, but Daniel could not appreciate it. He sat at a small table in the corner and ordered whiskey from the automated bartender. He drank it fast and ordered another one. He was on his third drink when Catherine appeared. He did not hear her coming. She just suddenly was there, standing next to his table. She held 2 glasses of amber liquid. She sat down across from him without asking permission and slid one glass toward him. He looked at it but did not touch it. He looked at her instead. She looked calm and composed, like she was having a casual business meeting. Her expression showed nothing. Daniel asked her how long. His voice came out rough and tired. How long had she owned this place? Catherine took a small sip from her glass before answering. 3 years, she told him. She bought it with the inheritance money from her father, who died 4 years ago. Daniel remembered that money. It was a lot of money. Almost 2 million credits. He had wanted Catherine to invest it in his business. He had plans for expansion. New trade routes. New warehouses. He told her it was the smart thing to do. But Catherine refused. She said she wanted to do something on her own. Something that was just hers. Daniel had been furious. He called her foolish. He said she did not understand business or finance. He told her she would waste the money on something stupid. Then he did not talk to her for a week until she apologized. Except she did not waste the money. She bought this hotel, and clearly she did understand business because this place was successful. Very successful based on the prices Daniel saw when he made the reservation. Catherine explained that the hotel catered to a specific type of client. Wealthy people who wanted privacy for their various activities. People who wanted to hide things. People who were doing things they should not be doing. She said Daniel would be surprised how many marriages she had saved by providing evidence to wronged spouses, and how many marriages she had ended the same way. Daniel felt anger rising through his confusion. He asked if she had been spying on people. Catherine laughed, but it was not a happy sound. She said she was not spying. She was documenting. There was a difference. People came to her hotel thinking they were invisible, thinking they could do whatever they wanted without consequences. She simply recorded what happened. What people chose to do with that information afterward was their choice, not hers. Every guest signed a waiver when they checked in. The waiver explained that the hotel had surveillance for security purposes. Nobody read it, of course. People never read the fine print. They just signed and went on with their secret activities. Daniel felt sick. He asked her what happened now. Was she going to blackmail him? Was she going to divorce him and take everything he had? Catherine set down her glass and leaned forward. Her eyes were hard now. She told him he still did not understand anything. She did not need to take anything from him. This hotel generated more revenue in a single month than his failing import business made in an entire year. She had 3 other hotels now. One on Mars, one on Europa, one on a station near Venus. She was worth more than Daniel ever was or ever would be. The words hit Daniel like punches. His business was failing. That was true. He had been hiding the losses from Catherine for over a year. He kept telling her everything was fine. He kept up appearances. But the truth was he was drowning in debt. The trade routes he invested in were not profitable. His competitors were beating him on prices. His warehouses were half empty. He was using credit to pay credit. It was all falling apart. But he never told Catherine any of this because he did not want her to know he was failing. Daniel asked her why she stayed married to him if she knew he was cheating. If she did not need his money, if she was so successful on her own, why stay with him at all? Catherine's expression softened just a little bit. She said that until today she was not completely sure. She suspected he was cheating. There were signs. The late nights. The unexplained expenses. The way he never wanted her to come with him on business trips anymore. But she wanted to believe she was wrong. She wanted to believe that the man she married 10 years ago was still in there somewhere. Now she knew better. Now she knew for certain. Catherine pulled out a thin data pad from her jacket pocket. She placed it on the table between them. She told him they were divorce papers, already filed with Earth Central Registry. The papers outlined the division of assets. Daniel would receive half of what they acquired together during the marriage. That included the house on Earth and about 50,000 credits in a joint savings account. Everything else was Catherine's separate property. The hotels, her investment accounts, her business holdings, all of it was established with her inheritance money, which meant it was not marital property. A lawyer already reviewed everything. It was all legal and proper. Daniel stared at the data pad. He asked if this was really it. 8 years of marriage ended just like that. Catherine stood up and smoothed her skirt. She told him it was more generous than he deserved. She told him to sign the papers and not make this ugly. She could make things very difficult for him if she wanted to. She had recordings of him and Lauren. She had records of him using company money to pay for this trip. She had evidence of financial fraud in his business dealings. She could destroy him completely if she chose to. But she did not want to do that. She just wanted to be done with him. She wanted him out of her life so she could move forward. Catherine turned to walk away, but Daniel called out to her. He asked her how they got to this point. He said they used to be happy. Catherine stopped walking but did not turn around. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said they were never really happy. Daniel was happy because he thought he was in control. He thought he was the successful one, the smart one, the important one. Catherine was happy because she was too naive to see what their marriage really was. But she was not naive anymore. She learned, she grew, she became someone new, someone stronger, someone who did not need Daniel Carter anymore. Then she walked away, and this time Daniel did not call her back. He just sat there in the observation lounge staring at the divorce papers and wondering how he had lost everything without even realizing it was happening. Daniel did not sleep that night. He went to the honeymoon suite because he had nowhere else to go, but he could not make himself lie down on the huge bed. Instead, he sat in a chair by the window and watched the nebula slowly shift colors as the station rotated. His mind kept going back through the years, trying to figure out where everything went wrong, trying to understand how he missed all the signs that Catherine was building a completely separate life. He remembered when they first met. It was 12 years ago on Mars at a technology conference. Daniel was there trying to make business connections for his new import company. Catherine was there as a speaker. She was only 26 years old, but she was already a senior engineer on the Mars Terraform project. She gave a presentation about new atmospheric processors that could convert carbon dioxide into breathable air faster than anything else available. Daniel sat in the audience and was amazed, not just by her ideas, but by her confidence. The way she commanded the room, the way she answered difficult questions from other scientists without hesitation. She was brilliant and beautiful, and Daniel wanted her immediately. He pursued her aggressively. He sent her messages every day. He showed up at her lab with flowers. He took her to expensive restaurants. He told her she was special. He told her he wanted to build a life with her. Catherine was flattered by the attention. She was not used to men pursuing her so intensely. Most men were intimidated by her intelligence and her success. But Daniel seemed different. He seemed to admire those things about her. He seemed to want a partner, not just a pretty face. They got married after dating for 2 years. Catherine was 28 and Daniel was 32. The wedding was small but nice on a beach in California. Catherine's father walked her down the aisle. Her mother cried happy tears. Daniel's family came from Texas. Everyone said they were a perfect couple. Everyone said they would do great things together. For a while it seemed like they were right, but then things started to change. Daniel's business was growing and he needed help. He asked Catherine to quit her job on Mars and move to Earth with him. He said he needed her support. He said they were a team and teams worked together. Catherine was hesitant. She loved her work. She was close to a major breakthrough on a new processor design, but Daniel kept pushing. He said her career would always be there. He said this was their chance to build something together. Finally, Catherine agreed. She quit her job. She moved to Earth. She left behind her research and her colleagues and her life on Mars. At first, she tried to help with the business. She had ideas about supply chain optimization and route planning. She understood the technical side of the products Daniel was importing. But Daniel did not want her input. He got frustrated when she asked questions. He told her she did not understand how things worked in the real business world. He said engineering and business were completely different things. He made her feel stupid for trying. So eventually she stopped trying. She stayed home instead. She took care of the house. She joined some social clubs. She tried to make friends on Earth, but it was hard. She missed Mars. She missed her work. She missed feeling important. Daniel barely noticed. He was too busy with his company. He traveled constantly. Mars, Europa, Titan, the asteroid belt. He was making deals and building relationships and growing his empire. Or at least that was what he told himself. The truth was his business was never as successful as he pretended. He made enough money to maintain appearances. He could afford the nice house and the expensive car and the fancy restaurants. But he was not getting rich. He was just staying afloat. And as competition increased, he started falling behind. When Catherine's father got sick, she went back to Mars to take care of him. She was gone for 3 months. Daniel visited once for 2 days and spent most of that time on business calls. Catherine's father died quietly in a hospital room with Catherine holding his hand. He left her almost 2 million credits from his life savings and investments. It was more money than Catherine ever expected. Her father had been a mining engineer who lived simply and saved carefully. He wanted his daughter to have security. Daniel immediately started planning how to use the money. He did not ask Catherine what she wanted to do with her inheritance. He just assumed it would go into his business. He needed capital for expansion. He had opportunities lined up. This money could take his company to the next level. He presented it to Catherine like it was already decided, like there was no other logical option. But Catherine said no. She said the money was hers and she wanted to do something with it on her own, something that was just for her. Daniel was shocked and angry. He could not believe she was being so selfish. He told her marriage meant sharing everything. He said they were supposed to be partners. He accused her of not caring about his dreams or their future together. They had terrible fights about it. Daniel said things he should not have said. He called her ungrateful. He said she did not understand how hard he worked. He gave her the silent treatment for days, trying to make her feel guilty. But Catherine did not change her mind. She took her inheritance money and she did something with it. Daniel assumed she wasted it on something foolish. He never asked what. He did not care. He just resented her for it. Now sitting in this hotel room, Daniel realized how wrong he had been about everything. Catherine did not waste the money. She invested it brilliantly. She bought a struggling hotel on this station and turned it into one of the most profitable establishments in the colonies. She did it without his help, without his advice, without his approval. She proved she understood business better than he ever did. And she did it all while he was off traveling and cheating and slowly running his own company into the ground. Daniel thought about Lauren. He tried to remember when that started. About 8 months ago. She was new to the company, young and pretty and impressed by Daniel's position. He liked the way she looked at him like he was important, like he was successful. His business was failing and his marriage was cold and he felt like he was losing control of everything. Lauren made him feel powerful again. So he started staying late at the office with her. Then those late nights turned into dinners. Then dinners turned into hotel rooms. It was easy and exciting, and it made him forget about all his problems for a little while. But he never thought about how it would hurt Catherine. He never thought about what he was throwing away. He just thought about himself and what he wanted. He told himself that Catherine did not care. She was always busy with her mysterious consulting work. She was always traveling. She did not pay attention to him anymore. He convinced himself that their marriage was already over in everything but name. He told himself he deserved to be happy. He deserved someone who appreciated him. Now he understood that Catherine was not ignoring him. She was building a life without him. She was moving on while he was standing still. She was becoming successful while he was failing. And she did not need him anymore. Maybe she never really did. The sun started to rise over the horizon of New Titan. The light changed from deep purple to orange and pink. Daniel finally stood up from the chair. His body ached from sitting in the same position all night. He looked at himself in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. He looked old and tired and defeated. He picked up the data pad with the divorce papers. His hand shook as he pressed his thumb to the signature box. The pad beeped, confirming his identity and accepting his signature. It was done. 8 years of marriage ended with a simple thumb press. Daniel set the pad down and wondered what he was supposed to do now. Where he was supposed to go. Who he was supposed to be. For the first time in his life, Daniel Carter had no plan and no answers and no one to blame but himself. Daniel was summoned to Catherine's office the next morning. A message appeared on his data pad at exactly 8 in the morning. The message was formal and cold. It requested his presence in the executive office at 9. It was not really a request. It was a command. Daniel considered ignoring it. He considered just leaving the station and never looking back. But he knew that would be stupid. Catherine held all the power now. She had evidence that could destroy what little remained of his reputation and business. He had to face her one more time. The executive office was on the top floor of the hotel in a section that regular guests never saw. Daniel took a private elevator that required a special key card. Catherine must have activated his room card to allow access. The elevator was made of glass, and as it rose, Daniel could see the entire station spreading out below him. The hotel occupied a huge section of the rotating ring. Through windows, he could see parks and shops and residential areas where people lived and worked. This station was home to almost 50,000 people. It was a small city floating in space, and Catherine owned one of its most valuable properties. The elevator doors opened into a quiet hallway with thick carpet and expensive art on the walls. Daniel found the office at the end of the hall. The door was already open. He walked in and stopped. The office was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed an unobstructed view of space. The nebula filled half the view, while New Titan's orange surface filled the other half. The office was large, with a massive desk made of real wood, which must have cost a fortune to transport from Earth. The walls were covered with framed certificates and awards and photos of Catherine with important-looking people, business leaders, politicians, colony administrators. Catherine sat behind the desk wearing another expensive suit. This one was dark gray with a white shirt. She looked powerful and professional. Next to her sat another woman who was older, with short silver hair and sharp eyes. She wore a formal business outfit and had a data pad in her hands. She looked like a lawyer. Daniel's stomach sank even further. Catherine gestured to a chair across from the desk. She introduced the other woman as Helen Crawford. She was Catherine's attorney, and she specialized in colonial business law. Helen nodded at Daniel but did not smile. Daniel sat down slowly. He felt like he was in a courtroom about to receive a sentence. Catherine spoke first. Her voice was calm and businesslike. She said she wanted to make sure Daniel understood the complete situation before he left the station. She wanted everything clear so there would be no confusion or problems later. Helen activated a holographic display above the desk. Numbers and charts appeared floating in the air. Daniel recognized some of them. They were financial records from his company. Helen spoke in a crisp, professional voice. She said that Carter Imports was currently 700,000 credits in debt. The company had been operating at a loss for 18 months. Daniel had been using joint credit accounts that he shared with Catherine to cover some of the losses. He had also taken out personal loans using the house as collateral. The business was essentially bankrupt. Without immediate capital injection, it would collapse within 3 months. Daniel felt his face burning. He wanted to argue. He wanted to deny it. But he could not. Everything Helen said was true. He had been hiding the extent of his financial problems for so long that he almost believed his own lies. But the numbers did not lie. His company was dying and he was drowning in debt. Catherine leaned forward with her fingers pressed together. She said that as his wife, she was technically partially liable for debts incurred during their marriage. A good lawyer could argue that some of his business debts were marital debts since he used joint accounts. That meant she could be forced to pay some of what he owed. But she was willing to make a deal. She would assume half of his business debt. That was 350,000 credits. She would pay it off completely. In exchange, Daniel would surrender any claim to her business holdings. He would sign a non-disclosure agreement about the operations of the Celestial Rest and her other properties. He would also agree to never contact her again, unless it was through lawyers for official business. Daniel asked what happened if he refused. His voice came out weak. Catherine's expression did not change. She said that if he refused, she would release everything. The video footage of him and Lauren at the hotel, the financial records showing he used company funds to support his affair, the evidence of his business failures. She would send it to his remaining clients, to his creditors, to the business networks that reported on colonial commerce. His reputation would be destroyed. His business would collapse immediately. He might even face criminal charges for misuse of corporate funds. And she would not help him with any of the debt. He would be completely on his own. Helen added that Catherine was being extremely generous. She had no legal obligation to pay any of his debts. She was doing it because, despite everything, she did not want to see him completely destroyed. She just wanted a clean break, a final end to their relationship. Daniel looked at the holographic numbers floating in the air. He looked at Catherine sitting behind her expensive desk in her expensive office at the top of her successful hotel. He thought about his empty apartment back on Earth, his failing company, his maxed-out credit accounts, his complete lack of options. He asked how long he had to decide. Catherine said he had until the end of the day. Helen would prepare all the paperwork. If he signed, Then Catherine would immediately transfer funds to cover his debts. His creditors would be paid off. His company could declare bankruptcy cleanly without taking him down personally. He would walk away with the small settlement from the divorce and a chance to start over. If he did not sign, then she would proceed with the alternative plan. The choice was his. Daniel wanted to feel angry. He wanted to rage about how unfair this was. But deep down, he knew Catherine was being more than fair. She was saving him from total destruction. She was giving him a way out that he did not deserve. He had cheated on her. He had lied to her. He had dismissed her ideas and made her feel small. He had wasted years of her life. And now she was offering him mercy. He told her he would sign. Catherine nodded like she expected this answer. Helen tapped on her datapad, and new documents appeared in the holographic display. Daniel read through them carefully. Everything was exactly as Catherine described. The debt assumption, the property division, the non-disclosure agreement, the no-contact clause. It was all there in clear legal language. Helen handed him a stylus. Daniel signed each document with a shaking hand. Each signature felt like giving up another piece of himself. Each page was another acknowledgement of how completely he had failed. When it was done, Helen gathered the documents into her datapad. She said everything would be filed with the proper authorities within the hour. The debt payments would be processed by end of business day. Daniel's creditors would receive notifications. It was all very efficient and professional. Helen stood up and shook Catherine's hand. Then she nodded to Daniel and left the office. The door closed silently behind her. Daniel and Catherine sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, Daniel asked why she was doing this. Why help him at all after everything he did? Catherine was quiet for a moment, looking out the window at the stars beyond. She said that she was not doing it for him. She was doing it for herself. She wanted to be able to move forward without any loose ends, without any connection to her past life. Paying his debts meant she would never have to think about him again. Never have to worry about him showing up asking for help. It was worth 350,000 credits to be completely free of Daniel Carter. She told him his shuttle to Mars left in 4 hours. She had a staff member pack his things from the honeymoon suite. Everything would be waiting for him at the docking bay. She suggested he use the time to think about what he wanted to do next, to think about the kind of person he wanted to be going forward. Then she turned back to her desk and started working on her datapad. The meeting was clearly over. Daniel stood up slowly. He wanted to say something. Apologize, maybe. Explain himself. But he knew nothing he could say would matter. So he just walked out of the office and closed the door behind him. In the elevator going down, he caught his reflection in the glass. He looked like a stranger, a failure, a man who had everything and threw it all away. The elevator reached the ground floor and the doors opened. Daniel stepped out into the lobby and started walking toward the exit. He did not look back. The shuttle bay was crowded with travelers, families heading back to Mars, business people going to meetings on Europa, miners returning to the asteroid belt. Everyone had somewhere to go and something to do. Daniel sat on a bench near his departure gate with his single bag at his feet. Everything he brought to the station fit in one bag. Everything he owned in the universe fit in a small apartment back on Earth. At 42 years old, he had nothing to show for his life except debt and failure and broken relationships. He kept replaying the conversation with Lauren before she left. She had been so angry and hurt. She told him he lied about everything, about his marriage, about his success, about who he was. She said she felt stupid for believing him, for thinking she was special, for thinking what they had meant something. Daniel tried to explain, but the words came out wrong. He tried to tell her that he cared about her, that what they had was real. But even as he said it, he knew it was not true. Lauren was not special. She was just available. She was just there when he needed someone to make him feel important. He never really loved her. He never really knew her. She was just an escape from his real life. Just another lie he told himself. Now Lauren was gone and Catherine was gone, and soon Daniel would leave this station and return to his empty life. The announcement came over the speakers. His shuttle was boarding. Daniel picked up his bag and joined the line of passengers. He showed his ticket to the attendant and walked down the boarding tunnel. The shuttle was small and cramped. He found his seat near the back and strapped in. Other passengers settled around him. A woman with 2 young children. An older man in a mining company uniform, a young couple holding hands and smiling at each other. Daniel looked out the small window as the shuttle detached from the station. The celestial rest grew smaller in the distance. He could see the elegant curves of the hotel, the huge windows reflecting starlight. Somewhere in that building, Catherine was probably in her office working, making deals, running her empire, living her successful life, a life that no longer included him. The station rotated away, and then there was only space. Only stars and darkness and the long journey ahead. The shuttle trip to Mars took 6 hours. Daniel tried to sleep but could not. His mind would not stop racing. He kept thinking about choices and consequences, about the moment everything started to go wrong. Was it when he asked Catherine to quit her job? Was it when he dismissed her ideas about his business? Was it when he refused to let her invest her inheritance her own way? Was it when he started the affair with Lauren? Or was it earlier than all of that? Was it something fundamental in who he was as a person? Some flaw in his character that made him treat people badly? He remembered something his father told him when he was young. His father said that life was about building things. Building a business, building a family, building a reputation. His father was a successful rancher in Texas who owned thousands of acres of land. He built that ranch from nothing through hard work and smart decisions. Daniel always wanted to impress his father, always wanted to prove he could build something too. But somewhere along the way, Daniel forgot that building things meant more than just making money. It meant treating people right. It meant being honest. It meant keeping promises. His father built his ranch, but he also built strong relationships. He was respected in his community. People trusted him. Daniel built nothing but lies. The shuttle finally arrived at Mars and docked at the main station above Olympus City. Daniel gathered his bag and followed the other passengers off the shuttle. The Mars station was bigger and busier than the one at New Titan, thousands of people moving in every direction. Daniel made his way through customs and then down to the surface on an elevator that took 20 minutes. Olympus City was the capital of Mars and home to 3 million people. It was built in the shadow of the largest volcano in the solar system. The city was covered by a huge transparent dome that held in the atmosphere. Outside the dome, Mars was still mostly red desert and thin air. Inside the dome, there were trees and parks and buildings that looked almost like Earth. Daniel took a taxi to his apartment. He lived in a small unit in a building on the edge of the city. It was cheap and depressing, but it was all he could afford now. The taxi driver tried to make conversation, but Daniel just stared out the window. The driver eventually gave up and drove in silence. When they arrived, Daniel paid with his credit chip and rode the elevator to the 15th floor. His apartment was at the end of a long hallway. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. The air was stale. Everything was exactly as he left it 3 days ago. The unmade bed, the dirty dishes in the sink, the empty bottles on the counter. This was his life now. He dropped his bag on the floor and sat on the couch. The couch was old and uncomfortable with springs that poked through the cushions. Daniel put his head in his hands. For the first time since everything happened, he felt tears coming. He tried to hold them back but could not. He cried for his failed marriage, for his failed business, for his failed life. He cried because he was alone and it was his own fault. He cried because he finally understood what he had lost and what he threw away and how stupid he had been. He cried until there were no more tears left. Then he just sat there in the silence of his empty apartment and felt nothing. The next few days passed in a blur. Daniel barely left the apartment. He ordered food through delivery services. He watched mindless entertainment on the view screen. He ignored messages from his few remaining business contacts. He ignored calls from his family back on Earth. He just existed, just waited for something to happen, though he did not know what. Then on the 4th day after returning from New Titan, something did happen. A message came through on his data pad. It was from an unknown sender. The message header said it was a video file. Daniel almost deleted it. He assumed it was spam or advertising, but something made him open it. The video started playing and Daniel's heart skipped a beat. It was Catherine. The video showed her sitting in what looked like her office. She wore a simple white shirt and her hair was down instead of pulled back. She looked tired but calm. She began speaking directly to the camera. She said she hoped this message found Daniel well. She said she had been thinking about their last conversation, about the way things ended. She said that despite everything, she did not hate him. She was angry, yes. She was hurt, yes. But she did not hate him. She understood that people made mistakes. She understood that life was complicated and relationships were hard, and sometimes things fell apart. Catherine said she wanted Daniel to know something important. She wanted him to know that the man she married was not a bad person. He was just a lost person. He was someone who got caught up in trying to prove himself, in trying to be successful and important and respected. He forgot about the things that really mattered. He forgot about being honest and kind and faithful. But forgetting was not the same as being evil. Making mistakes was not the same as being irredeemable. She told Daniel that she recently expanded her business. She now owned a company that placed qualified workers in jobs throughout the colonies. It was a legitimate employment agency that worked with businesses and individuals to match skills with opportunities. She had reviewed Daniel's work history. She looked at his education and his experience. Despite everything that happened between them personally, he did have real skills. He understood logistics and supply chain management. He knew about import regulations and trade routes. He had knowledge that was valuable. Catherine said there was a position opening on a mining station near Jupiter. It was entry-level management, but it was honest work. The pay was decent. There was room for growth if someone proved themselves. She was not offering this as charity or pity. She was offering it as a professional courtesy. If Daniel wanted the job, he would have to apply properly and interview like anyone else. There would be no special treatment. But if he did get the job and if he worked hard, then maybe he could rebuild his life. Maybe he could become the person he should have been. The video ended with Catherine saying one more thing. She said that people make choices every single day. Those choices define who they are. Daniel made bad choices.
He hurt people, including himself.
But that did not mean he had to keep making bad choices. Every day was a new chance to choose differently, to be better, to build something real instead of something false. She hoped he would take that chance. Then the video ended and the screen went dark. Daniel sat staring at the blank screen for a long time. He played the message again. Then again. Each time he heard Catherine's words, something inside him shifted. Something that had been broken started to feel like maybe it could be fixed. Daniel spent the entire next day thinking about Catherine's message. He must have watched it 20 times. Each time he noticed something different. The way she chose her words carefully. The way she looked tired but determined. The way she offered him a chance without making him feel pathetic. She could have just sent a job posting. She could have had someone from her company contact him. But she sent a personal message. She took the time to explain, to acknowledge what happened between them, to offer him not just a job but a path forward. He looked up information about the mining station she mentioned. It was called Junction Point, and it orbited Jupiter in a stable position between the planet and one of its larger moons. The station supported mining operations throughout the Jupiter system. It had about 2,000 workers and their families living there permanently. The job posting was for an operations coordinator, someone who would manage supply deliveries and warehouse inventory, make sure the miners had the equipment and materials they needed, track shipments and resolve problems. It was not glamorous work, but it was important work. It was real work. Daniel read through the job requirements several times. He had the qualifications. He had years of experience in exactly this kind of logistics. Back when his company was doing well, he managed complex supply chains across multiple colonies. He knew how to track inventory, how to negotiate with suppliers, how to solve problems when shipments were delayed or damaged. He had let those skills atrophy as his business failed. He stopped focusing on the actual work and spent all his energy trying to hide his failures. But the knowledge was still there. The experience was still there. He started putting together an application. It felt strange at first. He had not applied for a job in over 10 years. He had been his own boss for so long he forgot what it was like to be an employee, to have someone else set his schedule and evaluate his performance, to be accountable to others. Part of him resisted the idea. Part of him felt like it was beneath him. He was Daniel Carter. He owned his own company. Or at least he used to. Now he owned nothing. Now he was unemployed and in debt and living in a tiny apartment. Now he needed to accept help from his ex-wife who had every reason to let him fail. That thought made Daniel pause. Catherine did not have to help him. She could have taken her settlement and disappeared from his life forever. She could have watched him struggle and fail and end up homeless. After what he did to her, that would have been justified. But instead, she was giving him an opportunity. Not because she owed him anything. Not because she still loved him. But because she was a better person than he was. Because she believed people deserved second chances. Because somewhere underneath all his mistakes, she still saw something worth saving. Daniel finished his application and submitted it through the official employment portal. He included his resume and references from years ago when his business was successful. He wrote a cover letter explaining his experience and why he wanted the position. He did not mention Catherine. He did not mention their relationship. He treated it like any other job application. That was clearly what she wanted. No special treatment. No shortcuts. Just a fair chance based on his qualifications. The next 2 weeks were hard. Daniel waited to hear back about the job. He tried to stay busy. He cleaned his apartment for the first time in months. He went through his belongings and threw away things he did not need. Old business cards from failed deals. Clothes that did not fit anymore. Reminders of his old life. He kept only what was essential. It felt like shedding skin. Like becoming someone new. He also started exercising. There was a small gym in his building that he never used before. He started going every morning. Just walking on the treadmill at first. Then jogging. Then running. His body ached and protested, but he pushed through. The physical pain was almost welcome. It gave him something to focus on besides his failures. It made him feel like he was doing something productive. Like he was preparing for whatever came next. Daniel also reached out to his family. He called his father in Texas for the first time in 6 months. His father was surprised to hear from him. Daniel was honest for maybe the first time in years. He told his father that his business failed, that his marriage ended, that he made terrible mistakes. His father was quiet for a long time. Then he said he was disappointed but not surprised. He said Daniel always tried to take shortcuts, always tried to look successful instead of actually being successful. But he also said it was never too late to change. Never too late to become the man Daniel was supposed to be. They talked for over an hour. When the call ended, Daniel felt lighter somehow. Finally, the response came. An automated message saying his application was being reviewed. Then a few days later, another message asking him to interview via video call. Daniel prepared carefully. He researched the mining station. He reviewed his knowledge of supply chain logistics. He thought about questions they might ask and practiced his answers. He wanted this job. He needed this job. Not just for the money, not just to survive, but to prove to himself that he could do something right. That he could work hard and be reliable and build something real. The interview was with a woman named Patricia Stone, who was the station manager. She was in her 50s with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She asked tough questions about his experience, about gaps in his employment, about why his business failed. Daniel was honest. He did not make excuses or blame others. He admitted he made poor decisions. He said he was not focused on the actual work. He let things fall apart because he was distracted by personal problems. Patricia seemed to appreciate his honesty. She asked about his technical knowledge, about how he would handle various scenarios. Daniel answered confidently. This was the part he was good at. This was where his experience showed. At the end of the interview, Patricia said they had several qualified candidates. She would make a decision within a week. She thanked him for his time. The call ended. Daniel sat back and let out a long breath. He thought the interview went well, but he was not sure. He had no way to know if it was enough. All he could do was wait. 5 days later, another message came. Daniel almost could not bring himself to open it. What if they rejected him? What if this one chance slipped away? What if he was stuck in this apartment forever with no future and no hope? But finally, he opened the message. He read it 3 times to make sure he understood correctly. He got the job. They wanted him to start in 2 weeks. There were forms to fill out and medical checks to complete. But the job was his if he wanted it. Daniel wanted to celebrate. He wanted to tell someone. But there was no one to tell. Lauren would not talk to him. Catherine made it clear she wanted no contact. His few friends from before had all drifted away, so he just sat in his apartment and felt relief wash over him. He had a job. He had a purpose. He had a reason to get up in the morning. It was a start. It was not much, but it was more than he had yesterday. He thought about sending a message to Catherine. Just to say thank you, to acknowledge what she did for him. But then he remembered the non-contact clause in their divorce agreement. She did not want to hear from him. She made that very clear. So instead he just sat quietly and felt grateful. He would show his thanks through actions, not words. He would take this job and work harder than he ever worked before. He would prove that her faith in him was not completely misplaced. He would become someone worth being. That was the only way to truly thank her. Daniel spent the next 2 weeks preparing. He sold most of his remaining possessions. He did not need much at the mining station. Just clothes and personal items. Everything else was provided. He closed his apartment and arranged for his few belongings to be shipped to Junction Point. He completed all the medical checks and paperwork. He said goodbye to Mars without any regret. There was nothing keeping him here. Nothing but memories of failure. The day before he left, Daniel recorded a short video message. He addressed it to Catherine, but he did not send it. He just saved it on his personal data pad. In the message, he said thank you. He said he understood what she did for him and why. He said he would try to deserve the chance she gave him. He said he was sorry for everything, for the lies and the betrayal and the wasted years. He said he hoped she found happiness and success and everything she deserved. Then he ended the recording. He did not know if he would ever send it. Maybe someday, maybe never, but he needed to say the words even if only to himself. The journey to Junction Point took 3 days with stops at several stations along the way. Daniel traveled on a cargo hauler that carried supplies and equipment to the Jupiter system. There were only 12 passengers on board. Most were miners heading back from leave. They kept to themselves, and Daniel did the same. He spent most of the trip in his small cabin reading manuals about station operations and reviewing supply chain protocols. He wanted to be ready. He wanted to hit the ground running. Junction Point appeared as a bright dot against the massive bulk of Jupiter. As the ship got closer, Daniel could see it was actually several connected modules forming a rough circle. Solar panels spread out like wings catching light from the distant sun. Docking arms extended from the central hub where ships came and went constantly. The station looked industrial and functional. Nothing like the elegant celestial rest. This was a working station built for a purpose. Daniel found that appealing somehow. No pretense here. No luxury or excess. Just honest work and the people who did it. The hauler docked and Daniel gathered his single bag. He followed the other passengers through the airlock and into the station. The interior was clean but basic. Metal walls painted white. Efficient LED lighting. Signs directing people to different sections. Daniel checked in at the main administration office and received his temporary quarters assignment. He was given a station ID badge and a data pad loaded with orientation materials. A young man named Kevin Yang, who worked in operations, met him at the office. Kevin was supposed to show him around and help him get settled. Kevin was friendly and talkative. He had been on the station for 2 years and clearly loved his job. He walked Daniel through the main areas. The residential sections where workers lived in small but comfortable apartments. The cafeteria that served meals around the clock for the different shift workers. The recreation area with a gym and a lounge and a small theater. The medical center. The schools for workers' children. Kevin explained that Junction Point was more than just a workplace. It was a community. People lived here with their families. They built lives here. Daniel's quarters were small. Just a bedroom with a bathroom and a tiny kitchen area. But it was clean and the bed was comfortable. There was a window that looked out at Jupiter's swirling clouds. Daniel unpacked his few belongings and organized the space. Then he reviewed the materials on his data pad. His official start date was tomorrow, but he wanted to understand everything before his first day. He read about station procedures, about the mining operations they supported, about the inventory systems, about safety protocols. He took notes. He made diagrams. He fell asleep at the small desk with the data pad still glowing. His alarm woke him early. Daniel showered and dressed in the plain work clothes that were standard for operations staff. He ate breakfast in the cafeteria. The food was simple but good. Eggs and toast and coffee. He sat alone and watched the other workers. They talked and laughed easily with each other. They had routines and friendships. Daniel felt like an outsider, but he expected that. He would have to earn his place here. Patricia Stone met him at the operations center at exactly 7 in the morning. She showed him to his workstation, which was a desk with multiple screens and a communication headset. She introduced him to the rest of the operations team, 6 other people who managed different aspects of supply and logistics. They all seemed competent and professional. They welcomed Daniel politely but without excessive warmth. They would judge him by his work, not his words. Patricia explained his responsibilities. He would coordinate incoming supply shipments, make sure deliveries matched purchase orders, resolve discrepancies, update inventory systems, communicate with mining teams about their equipment needs. It was exactly the kind of work he used to do years ago. The systems were different, but the principles were the same. Track everything, verify everything, communicate clearly, solve problems quickly. Daniel dove into the work. His first day was overwhelming. So many systems to learn, so many procedures to memorize, so many people to keep track of. But he focused and asked questions and took careful notes. By the end of his shift, he was exhausted but satisfied. He had not made any major mistakes. He had handled several issues competently. Patricia seemed cautiously pleased with his performance. The first week passed in a blur of activity. Daniel worked 10-hour days learning the systems and building relationships with the mining teams. He discovered that good logistics was really about good communication. The miners needed to trust that supplies would arrive when promised. They needed to know someone was paying attention to their needs. Daniel made it his priority to be reliable. If he said a shipment would arrive on Tuesday, then it arrived on Tuesday. If there was going to be a delay, he communicated that immediately and found solutions. The work was hard, but Daniel found he enjoyed it. There was something satisfying about solving real problems, about making sure miners had the tools they needed to do their jobs safely, about keeping complex systems running smoothly. This was different from running his own business, where he spent half his time chasing payments and the other half pretending everything was fine. Here the problems were concrete. The solutions were measurable. Either the supplies arrived or they did not. Either the inventory was accurate or it was not. There was no room for pretense or lies. Daniel started building routines. He woke early and exercised in the station gym. He ate breakfast and reviewed his schedule. He worked his shift with complete focus. He ate dinner and then spent an hour reading or watching entertainment. He talked with other workers in the cafeteria. He learned their names and asked about their lives. He made an effort to be part of the community. It was slow progress, but it was progress. One evening, about 3 weeks after he started, Daniel was in the gym running on a treadmill. Another worker got on the machine next to him. It was a woman named Lisa Park who worked in environmental systems. They had met a few times in the cafeteria. She smiled at him and they ran in silence for a while. Then she asked how he was settling in. Daniel said honestly that it was an adjustment, but he was managing. Lisa laughed and said that was pretty much how everyone felt at first. The station took getting used to, but it grew on people. They talked while they ran. Lisa had been on Junction Point for 5 years. She came from Earth originally, but considered the station home now. Her husband worked in the mining operations, and they had a 6-year-old daughter who went to the station school. Lisa asked Daniel about his background. He gave her the simplified version. He used to run an import business, but it did not work out. He was divorced. He was starting over. Lisa nodded sympathetically. She said a lot of people on the station were starting over. That was part of what made the community strong. Everyone understood about second chances. Daniel thought about that conversation for days afterward. Second chances. That was exactly what this was. A chance to prove he could be reliable. A chance to work hard and earn respect. A chance to build something real instead of something false. He thought about Catherine's message. About her saying that every day was a chance to make better choices. He was making better choices now. Small ones. Getting up early. Doing his work well. Being honest with people. Treating others with respect. These were simple things, but they mattered. After 6 weeks, Patricia called Daniel into her office. He felt nervous, wondering if there was a problem. But Patricia smiled and told him to relax. She said she wanted to give him feedback on his performance. She pulled up evaluation metrics on her screen. Daniel's accuracy rate was excellent. His communication scores were high. The mining teams consistently rated their satisfaction with operations support as improved since he started. There had been fewer supply issues and faster resolution times. Patricia said she was impressed. She admitted that when she first saw his application, she had concerns. His business failure was a red flag. The gap in his employment was concerning. But his interview was strong. and his references from years ago were excellent, and someone she trusted had vouched for him. Patricia did not say who, but Daniel knew it was Catherine. Patricia said Daniel had proven himself in these first weeks. She was making his position permanent and giving him a small raise. She also wanted him to start training on some of the more complex systems. She saw potential for him to grow in the organization. Daniel thanked her. He left the office feeling something he had not felt in years. Pride. Not the fake pride that came from pretending to be successful, but real pride that came from doing good work. From earning respect through effort and integrity. It felt completely different. It felt real. That night, Daniel pulled out his data pad. He looked at the video message he recorded before leaving Mars, the message thanking Catherine. He thought about sending it, but then he decided to record a different message instead. In this new message, he told Catherine that he got the job, that he was doing well, that he was working hard and being reliable and building something real. He said her faith in him was not misplaced. He said he was becoming someone better, someone worth being. Then he saved this message too without sending it. Maybe someday he would send one of these messages. Maybe someday he would have earned that right. But not yet. Not until he had more to show. More proof that he really had changed. 6 months passed at Junction Point and Daniel barely recognized his own life. He woke each morning without the weight of dread he used to carry. His work was challenging but satisfying. He had developed genuine friendships with several people on the station. Lisa Park and her family invited him to dinner regularly. Kevin Yang from operations became his workout partner. He even started dating someone casually. Her name was Nicole Chen, and she was a data analyst for the mining company. Nothing serious yet, but it was nice to have someone to talk with and share meals with. Life felt normal in a way it had not felt for years. The station celebrated its 50th anniversary with a week of events. There were competitions and performances and special meals in the cafeteria. Daniel volunteered to help organize the supply logistics for the celebration. It was complex work coordinating extra food deliveries and decorations and equipment for the events. But he managed it smoothly. Everything arrived on time. Nothing was forgotten. The celebration was a huge success, and several people thanked Daniel personally for his work. Patricia mentioned him specifically during her anniversary speech. She said the operations team was the backbone of the station and singled out Daniel as an example of dedication and excellence. Daniel felt embarrassed by the praise but also grateful. A year ago, he was unemployed and alone and drowning in debt. Now he was a valued member of a community. He was good at his job. He had friends. He had a future. It was not a glamorous life. He was not rich or famous or powerful, but he was happy. Genuinely happy in a way he never was before. Because this happiness was earned through honest work and honest relationships. It was built on truth instead of lies. One evening, Daniel received an unexpected message on his personal data pad. It was from an address he did not recognize at first. Then he opened it and saw it was from Catherine. His heart started racing. She had not contacted him since that video message offering him the job. That was over 7 months ago. He almost could not bring himself to read the new message. But finally he did. Catherine's message was brief and professional. She said she was conducting a business trip through the Jupiter system and would be visiting Junction Point in 3 days to meet with Patricia Stone about expanding their employment partnership. She said she would like to meet with Daniel briefly if he was willing. Just coffee in the station cafeteria. She emphasized it was completely optional and would not affect his employment in any way. She just wanted to see how he was doing. If he preferred not to meet, she would understand completely. Daniel read the message 5 times. His first instinct was panic. He was not ready to see Catherine. He did not know what to say to her. But then he thought about it more carefully. She was giving him a choice. She was not demanding anything. She just wanted to see that he was okay. After everything she did for him, he owed her at least that. He sent back a short reply saying yes, he would be happy to meet for coffee. The next 3 days were torture. Daniel could not stop thinking about the meeting. He changed his clothes 3 times the morning Catherine was due to arrive. He got to the cafeteria early and sat at a table in the corner. He ordered coffee but could not drink it. His hands were shaking too much. Then Catherine walked in and Daniel forgot how to breathe. She looked different. Her hair was shorter now. She wore casual clothes instead of a business suit. She looked confident and relaxed. She spotted Daniel and smiled. It was not a big smile, but it was genuine. She walked over and sat down across from him. She thanked him for meeting with her. Daniel managed to say it was no problem. They sat in awkward silence for a moment. Then Catherine asked how he was doing. Really doing? Daniel took a breath and decided to be completely honest. He told her the job was going well. He was good at the work and the people here were kind. He was rebuilding his life slowly. He was making friends and developing routines. He was becoming someone he could respect. He paused and then said thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for believing there was something worth saving. Thank you for the second chance he did not deserve. Catherine listened quietly. When he finished, she said she was glad it was working out. She said she was not sure if offering him the job was the right decision. She struggled with it. Part of her wanted to let him face the consequences of his actions without her help. But another part remembered the man she first met 12 years ago. The man who was ambitious and energetic and full of potential. She wanted to believe that man was still in there somewhere. She took a chance that maybe he was. Daniel said he hoped he was proving her right. Catherine nodded. She said Patricia gave her excellent reports about his work performance. The mining teams consistently praised the operation support. The station's efficiency metrics improved significantly in the areas Daniel managed. From a business perspective, hiring him was clearly the right decision. But she wanted to know from him personally if he was actually happy. If this was the life he wanted, or if he was just going through the motions. Daniel thought carefully before answering. He said this was not the life he imagined for himself 10 years ago. He thought he would be running a big company, living in a fancy house, being important and successful. But that version of success was hollow. It was built on ego and lies. This life was different. It was smaller and simpler, but it was real. He woke up each day and did honest work. He treated people with respect and they respected him back. He was building genuine relationships based on trust instead of manipulation. It was not glamorous, but it was good. It was enough. Actually, it was more than enough. It was everything he needed. Catherine smiled for real this time. She said that was the answer she hoped to hear. She told Daniel that she struggled too after their marriage ended. She had been successful in business, but personally she felt like a failure. She chose the wrong man. She wasted years of her life. She missed opportunities and lost time. It took her months to work through those feelings. To understand that making a mistake did not mean she was a mistake. She learned that people can change. Situations can improve. Life goes on and offers new chances if you are willing to take them. She said she was happy now. Really happy. She met someone new a few months ago. A woman named Claire who ran an agricultural dome on Mars. They were taking things slowly, but it was good. Catherine was also opening 2 new hotels in the Saturn system. Her business was thriving. She had everything she wanted. Success on her own terms. A life built by her own choices. She hoped Daniel could find that same satisfaction in his own way. They talked for over an hour. Not about their failed marriage or his affair or any of the painful history between them. They talked about their current lives, about the work they were doing, about the people they cared about their hopes for the future. It felt strange at first, but gradually became comfortable. They were not friends exactly. Too much had happened for that. But they were not enemies either. They were 2 people who used to be married and now were not. 2 people who made mistakes and learned from them. 2 people who were both trying to build better lives. When Catherine finally said she needed to go, Daniel stood and offered his hand. She shook it firmly. Then she surprised him by pulling him into a brief hug. She whispered that she forgave him, that she hoped he forgave himself, that he deserved happiness and she hoped he found it. Then she let go and walked away. Daniel stood watching until she disappeared through the cafeteria door. He sat back down and finally drank his cold coffee. His hands were not shaking anymore. That night, Daniel pulled out his datapad one more time. He deleted both of the unsent video messages to Catherine. He did not need them anymore. He had said what he needed to say in person. Instead, he opened a new file and started writing. Not to Catherine, just for himself. He wrote about his journey over the past year. About hitting bottom and climbing back up. About learning the difference between appearing successful and actually being successful. About understanding that redemption was not a single moment, but a series of small choices made every day. About becoming someone worth being. He wrote that he still had regrets. He wished he had been a better husband. He wished he had not lied and cheated and hurt people. He wished he had made different choices. But he also understood that regrets were only useful if they taught lessons, if they changed behavior. He learned his lessons. He changed his behavior. He was not the same person who checked into that hotel with his mistress 8 months ago. That person was weak and dishonest and cowardly. This person was stronger, more honest, braver. Daniel finished writing and saved the file. Then he looked out his window at Jupiter's massive presence. The planet was beautiful with its swirling clouds and mysterious storms. It was also harsh and dangerous. The radiation would kill an unprotected human in minutes. The gravity would crush anything that fell into it. But humans built stations like Junction Point anyway. They found ways to survive and even thrive in impossible places. They adapted and persevered and built lives in the darkness of space. That was what humans did. They made mistakes. They failed. They hurt each other and themselves. But they also learned and grew and changed. They built second chances out of their failures. They turned shame into lessons and regrets into wisdom.